Alrighty, it is the top of the hour here, 1 o'clock on the East Coast, and that means we are good to go ahead and kick off this call. Welcome, everyone, to today's Asset Map Smart Start training. Before we officially get going here, just a quick housekeeping item. You'll notice there are two options here in the Zoom for submitting your questions. We have Q&A and chat. For this webinar, I encourage you to go ahead and use the chat feature when submitting questions. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat as we go through training, and I'll leave some time at the end of the call here to field any questions I've not addressed. But I am so excited to be sharing our process with you today. I have seen firsthand how incorporating the asset map into your practice has the ability to really supercharge the value that you provide to your clients. And while there are many goals that Asset Map can help you achieve, how important is it for you to deliver an exceptional client experience? By the end of today's call, you'll be equipped with the tools to meet that goal. So let's get started. First things first, introductions. My name is John. I'm an onboarding advisor here at Asset Map. I am actually a former Asset Map user myself. I worked for many years as a paraplanner on the advice side of the industry. Since 2016, I have built out hundreds of maps for my clients, and I have seen the power of this tool firsthand in practice many, many times. So believe me, when I say that bringing the asset map into your existing process or developing a whole new process around it, it has the potential to pay some serious dividends. I also have a 7-year-old daughter who I love goofing off with. We had an awesome summer and we are back to school now, excited to see what second grade has in store for us. And finally, I have 5 cats and 2 dogs in my house and I work from home. So I always have a front row to the circus and I wouldn't have it any other way. Fortunately, at this time of day, they're all lounging quietly, so I'm very grateful to them for that. But enough about me. Let's frame out our agenda here. We'll be covering quite a lot today, and unlike some other fintech out there, Asset Map is very intuitive, and we'll be able to cover the majority of our basic features in this one training. Now, you are all newer users, and I'm here to tell you that if you take this process and run with it, Asset Map will more than pay for itself very quickly. You've got a year with us, so let's make it a great year. And I have a lot to cover over the next 50 odd minutes or so. So I will go pretty fast here. But at any point, if you'd like to repeat any information or you have a question, again, please use the chat function in Zoom to do so at any time. Now, one of the first things we'll cover, of course, is the asset map process and the best ways to get clients into our platform. Then I'll cover our discovery interview link as a powerful engagement tool for our prospective clients. And then the value of stencils and how they can be a very powerful way to uncover some opportunity and fuel conversation with your clients. Stencils are one of my favorite parts of the entire platform because you really get to apply your advisor intelligence and show a lot of value to the client in this step. After that, we'll spend time on creating reports and presenting Asset Map, both in meeting and as a follow-up to the appointment. And lastly, I will touch briefly on target map and signals fundamentals. I don't spend too much time here because they are a very robust tool that we host separate weekly target map trainings for every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. I very highly recommend attending one of these trainings. Target maps are the planning side of Asset Map, where we are able to take all of this great data from the household and answer our clients' most important questions. Questions like, hey, am I on track to meet the goals that are important to me and my family? We'll cover all that and more during your next training, the Target Map call, taking place on one of those Tuesday or Thursdays. Toward the end of the call here, I'll share more information on how to sign up for one of those calls as well. And of course, I'll be going through today all of these support resources that are available to you. We have a robust library of support articles that are available within our platform. And if you ever need further assistance, our team is available via phone, email, or direct chat in application, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Feel free to drop us a question, big or small, and a member of our team will be available to assist you. Now let's jump in. What we're covering today is the basics. How do I build these maps? How do I have some great conversations here? And there are a lot of other great features, bells, and whistles I might not have time to get to today, but I encourage you to dive in and explore on your own after this call here. What we'll cover today are the basics of assembling these asset maps. There are three basic ways to do so. I can engage them right away with our easy to follow discovery interview to gather some data ahead of our first appointment. Another option is to build the map live in person or over a Zoom using tools like stencils to guide that conversation along. And finally, we can also use an integration to quickly get existing client info synced with Asset Map. Whichever path you choose, we can very quickly get these maps built and get right into having valuable conversations with our clients. So without further ado, I am not going to bore you with a whole bunch of slides today. We'll be live in-app for the majority of this training. I'm going to switch my screen right now over to the AssetMap homepage. You should see it popping up in just a second here. And if you would not mind, in the Zoom chat right now, just go ahead and type the word yes for me. Let me know that my audio is coming through nice and clear and that you can see the AssetMap homepage okay. When I see a few yeses in the chat, I will know I'm good to keep going. In the meantime, I have a quick question for you, just one simple poll in terms of how you plan to utilize AssetMap in your practice. With new prospects coming in, an existing book of business, or a mix of the two. That poll is live now. I'll give that a few seconds here as answers come in, and then we'll be off to the races. All right, very good. I see some yeses in the chat. Thank you all for that. I appreciate it. And I see some answers coming in. Looks like overwhelmingly we are choosing that third option. I'm going to use AssetMap both with new prospects and existing clients. Well, great news. I'm going to cover both of those methods much more in depth today. Let's dive in right now. So here we are on the home page for AssetMap. When you log in, this is the first thing you'll see. Let's get familiar right away with some important sections. Up in the top right, I've got that chat bubble icon, or in the bottom right here, I have this blue button. Either one of those sections, when clicked, will open up our Asset Map Support Center. Like I said, my team is available. We are here Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Any question, big or small, you have, chat us, call us, email us. We are happy to get an answer for you. More than happy to help with that stuff. If your question is more general, though, we have a lot of great resources here in our support articles. If you click where it says search for help, start typing whatever it is you're looking for. For example, I want more info on the Redtail integration and how it works. Start typing the word Redtail. Down below, all the articles will populate. Let's go to the first one here, click into it, and this article will walk me through step by step how to link Redtail with AssetMap, how to bring households in, how to troubleshoot. All of it's right here in this article. Great starting resource for those types of questions. Now, I will not dive super in depth on integrations today because they take up a lot of time. And quite frankly, the starting point should be here in the support center. A lot of great articles there. But if you want further help than that, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are more than happy to do a one-on-one Zoom, walk you through it, and answer your questions. So that's what we're here for. There's a whole bunch of good stuff in this section right here. I'm not going to dive super in depth right now, but I encourage you to peruse this at your own leisure. If you want to get this whole window out of your way, that blue button at the bottom, when you click on it, will minimize that whole section back down. Now, I will point out, because you are newer users, every now and then when you log into AssetMap, we'll have a new tip popping up down here in the corner. It should not take you more than a minute to read that tip. Really cool features I want to highlight for you. I highly recommend taking the time, reading what we're putting up there, because as you start to build up your confidence in the platform, you got some great tools to use down here. And I will note that that pop-up will never appear while you're in a client's household in AssetMap. So while you're presenting, don't worry, we're not going to disturb you. That is a great resource to count on, our support center. There it is if you need it. But one more spot I want to check on ahead of time before we get too far into the weeds here is going to be our basic setup, like user preferences and team settings. Up in the top right, I have my profile picture right there in that bubble. For you, this may be a pair of initials. If you click on that bubble in the top right, it'll drop down a whole bunch of options. First place you want to go to right here is user preferences. There's some pretty basic settings here. Contact info, profile picture, various platform preferences, change the way AssetMap looks and feels, or leave it as it defaults. totally up to you. Go into user preferences, make sure all that stuff looks good, and save those changes. That'll inform a lot of our information going forward. Team settings down here is for if you're your team's manager, you can change some pretty high level stuff here, like your organization's name. Upload your team's logo. That logo by default will show up on the cover page of our comprehensive reports. And if you are on our elite program, we can actually use custom branding on your profile, which will replace the AssetMap logo at the top of the screen with your own team's logo right here. If you have questions about custom branding or elite features, reach out to myself or a team member. We are happy to talk you through it. And last but not least, very important in team settings, we have our disclosure and disclaimer language. You want to go in there ahead of time, make sure all that language looks good the way it should look. Compliance gives you 2 big thumbs up there. Once you're all set, cool. Save those changes and let's get into the fun part, which is building out our first household together. So the user preferences, team settings, everything's all good. Let's add our first household right now. To get there, we're going to click this big green button right here that says Add Household. And when I click on that, you'll see there are 3 main paths forward. I can build these asset maps out manually myself from scratch. And I have built out lots and lots of these maps in my time. I still prefer, in most cases, to build manually where I can, because it doesn't take more than a couple of minutes to get that map started. And I like having flexibility and control over how the map looks and functions. Doesn't take long to do. Discovery is fantastic for brand new prospects. This is that onboarding fact-finding interview. Send it out to a prospect, takes them 10 to 15 minutes, and the answers they give you will help them build the foundation of their asset map even before you, the advisor, have lifted a finger there. We're going to dive pretty deep in Discovery right here because it is an awesome onboarding tool. Integrations are where we can link a third party with AssetMap and pull some existing client and account info over to give us a nice, robust starting point. Now, the same thing is true of all 3 of these methods, whether I'm building these manually from scratch, via the interview process for a new prospect, or syncing in third-party info. This is my starting point. It's my foundation. Even when I sync all my info from Redtail, I still might be missing a few crucial pieces, like a placeholder for Social Security estimates, or potential future inheritance, long-term care insurance, disability. There may still be topics I want to apply to the map and things I want to bring up even with an existing client. So the next step across all 3 pathways here is the same. That is applying a stencil or a financial template to that foundation. Build on top of it and give yourself some really good financial placeholders for that conversation with your client or prospect. We'll dive a whole lot deeper into stencils in just a bit here, but I won't dive any deeper right now on integrations. Again, our support center has a lot of great options in there. But once the household's built, it's a very similar process. If I have an existing client, maybe I add them manually, put in what I know, apply a stencil, fill in some gaps, have a conversation. But what is Discovery? Why is it valuable? Well, the best way to show you that is to onboard a brand new prospect right now. Let's get started here. This is my Discovery dashboard. All the interviews I've sent out to my prospects, along with how far along they are. From here, I can go into all these households and see exactly what the prospect has given me. Let's back up a bit. What is Discovery? It's simply an onboarding fact-finding questionnaire designed and completed by a brand new prospect or a client ahead of our first meeting. Now, why is that so valuable? Well, you know this, right? That initial meeting with a prospect is such an important one, and giving a good first impression is so key. What if they came into that first meeting with you and you were able to say something like this? Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, thank you so much for completing the Discovery questionnaire ahead of time. Using what you've given me, I took the liberty of creating a first draft of your asset map to inform our discussion and make sure I could really bring value to our conversation. I can tell you from my paraplanner days, we had many new prospects go through the same process here, and they were often blown away when after that first meeting, we had a nice back and forth collaborative conversation. They walk out of my office holding in their hands a physical asset map, shows them where they're at, what I recommend we do moving forward, and that every time we get together, we're going to update, review, and refresh our strategy. Now, the best way to show you Discovery is to onboard a brand new prospect right now. Let's do that. There are 2 basic ways to send this interview out. The outbound discovery is a one-to-one prospecting tool. I enter the prospect's name in right here. I initiate that interview, and usually I will then take that link and email it to that prospect. What I hope they do is they open the link, click the email, right? Go into the interview process, give me a lot of good info up front, and then I get notified when they're all done. I reach out, set an appointment up. We have a great first conversation going over that map. Cool. That works very well for one-to-one scenarios. But the inbound link over here is fantastic for marketing and lead generation because this link here is tied to you as the advisor. You can take it and put it out in the wild wherever you want to. Put it in your email signature. Throw it on your website. Maybe on your website, you pair it with one of our custom marketing videos. Now that marketing video is a 1-minute long cartoon. It explains exactly what an asset map is and how it works. Usually, an advisor puts that video on their website. A client or prospect watches the whole thing and they say, wow, cool. Hey, I want one of those. Can you build me an asset map? Absolutely. Put this link here underneath that video on your website. It'll say something like, start building your map today. They click on it, they go right into the interview from your webpage without you, the advisor, having to put much effort forward. So that's great for inbound marketing. And of course, I have a QR code, a visual version of that same link. Take that visual, that QR code, put it on collateral, like a business card or a flyer, or maybe as the last slide of a seminar presentation. A prospect scans that code with their phone and taps it. It takes them right to the same page here, which is mobile friendly. They can do this whole thing on their phone, their tablet, their computer, doesn't really matter. But here's my nice landing page. My info is the advisor. All the prospect needs is to tell me their name, their email, and assure me they are not a robot. They do those 3 things, then we are off to the races here. So let's say we have someone come in, right? Kevin Cash, Kevin@nomail.com, and not a robot. So Kevin clicks continue right here. Now what has happened is I, the advisor, just got an email that says, hey, John, someone named Kevin Cash has begun your discovery interview. Okay, great. I can now go look in my CRM and see, do I know who Kevin is? Maybe I find out in this case that Kevin is someone I gave my business card to 2 months ago at a mixer. I don't remember quite what his deal is, but what I do know is if Kevin takes the next 15 minutes here seriously, gives me some good starting info, then Kevin here is a qualified prospect. I look forward to that next meeting. On the other hand, if Kevin phones this in, gives me one piece of info and puts no effort in, that might be a red flag that Kevin is not taking this seriously, he's not meeting me halfway, and he might not be a great fit because you know as well as I do, not every prospect becomes a client. Sometimes that meeting is a big fat waste of an hour. So let's see what Kevin does here. This is a great way to qualify these prospects, see if they'll meet you halfway and give you some kind of starting point here. Kevin should not have trouble with this. It's going to be 4 short steps down here, and he sees it should take about 15 minutes. Generally, it's closer to 10 minutes, unless he's giving me every piece of financial minutia under the sun. But I don't want all that. I want the rough estimates, the round numbers, the basic facts and figures. Kevin, don't give me your W-2 or your most recent quarterlies. I don't need all that detail just yet. Keep it simple. Give me what's in your head. Because despite Kevin's best efforts here, he's gonna forget some stuff. That's okay. That's expected. Whatever he leaves out, I, the advisor, will fill those gaps in on my end. And during our conversation, I'll have those on there as placeholders for more conversation. Those are going to be my stencils. We'll dive in a lot deeper there in just a bit. Let's see what Kevin gives us in his interview process. He clicked start now, and the first page is pretty simple. He should not have trouble filling this out. My name is Kevin Cash. I'm a male. I'm 50. Email and phone are optional. Very low barrier of entry here. But you know what? He gave his email on that first page. That's going to pre-fill here. I will take it. He clicks save right there. And now I ask a broad, open-ended question. Hey, Kevin, who are the important people in your life? This could be the obvious, like a spouse or dependents, or it could be a business partner, a CPA, an attorney. Anyone who is intimately involved in your financial picture, I want them on this map. If I am talking about retirement distributions and tax efficiencies, I would love to bring your CPA into that conversation. What's their name? Get them on here. What about wills or trusts? Let's get your attorney on here as well. Let's include them in that discussion. Let's build that 3-legged stool, advisor, CPA, and attorney. If all 3 of us are working together off this same visual for the same client, that is incredibly valuable to that client. and allows me, the advisor here, to build out my professional network. Kind of a win-win. Let's say for the sake of today's training, we're just going to add a spouse on here, all right? Her name is Peggy Cash. She's a female, she's 50, email, phone optional, don't need them. Click save right there and click continue, and right away we give some positive reinforcement. Hey, Kevin, Peggy, well done. You're doing great so far. We are now 42% complete, and we are encouraging them here to keep going. And I hope they do, because the next section here is where I get most of my info from, isn't it? Kevin and Peggy know as well as I do. They are not going to get the best advice from me unless I know what their situation looks like. So they're encouraged here. Tell me a bit more about themselves, about their income, their house, their mortgage, their investments, their insurance. They could select all 8 of these, or 2 or 3 of them. Something is better than nothing, but generally speaking, I'll take whatever they give me here. 5 categories, that's a good start. What do they leave out? I'm going to fill those gaps in. Don't worry about it. 5 categories. They click continue right here. I'm going to ask for some details, and I keep details very simple as well. Start with income right here. Simply tell me who it's tied to. It's tied to Kevin. He's employed. He works for Microsoft, and he makes about $200,000 a year. Okay, great. Approximate values are okay. Description, call it whatever you want. There's no required format there. Click save. Cool. We got Kevin's income on the map. Any other income coming in right now? Let's say, yes, they have a rental property. Let's add it on here. Who is it tied to? Let's say this is joint. Kevin and Peggy together have income from a rental. They call it their Florida rental, and they bring in about $40,000 each year. Perfect. Click save. Any other income? Let's say no, Peggy's not working right now. We're all set there. Click done. I'm moving on to real estate and properties, right? Tell me about your house. Well, it's jointly owned, Kevin and Peggy together. I don't care if they call it house. I don't need a city, street, or state. I certainly don't need an address just yet. I want to know, do you have something here? If so, what's the approximate value? That's my starting point. I will get your address later on. I don't need it just yet. For now, I want a house on the map worth $500,000. That's all I need. Is there other real estate though? Yes, of course. We have the rental cash flow as an income. Let's also add that rental property as an asset. So again, that's jointly owned. We call it a rental home. We give it the same name we gave the cash flow. And maybe that property is worth about 400 grand. Cool. Click save right there. Click done. Moving on to loans and liabilities. Tell me about the mortgage. Kevin and Peggy jointly have a mortgage through Bank of America, and the balance of that is about 200 grand. Awesome. What do I already know? They have equity in their house. That's important. Click save, click done. And now I'll stop here and note that to this point, I, the advisor, have not lifted a finger yet. I have not done a thing. This is entirely what Kevin and Peggy are giving me in their discovery interview process. They're giving me all the inputs themselves. Now, why is that valuable? Because the output of all of this, the asset map we're about to have here, Kevin and Peggy already have some ownership of. They have buy-in to this process. When they see the map for the first time, they're going to say, hey, cool, we helped you build that. That ownership, that buy-in, that collaboration is key. Why? Because that's what builds trust. Now, you know this. Trust is everything in our industry, but you can't just make someone trust you by putting an ad in the paper that says, hey, trust me. That's not how it works. The way that we build trust with our clients and prospects is through genuine collaborative efforts, like building a map together. Hey, Kevin, Peggy, you give me the inputs. I give you the advice, but this is always going to be a two-way street built on mutual trust and respect. That is why I like discovery so much, because you're setting the framework for the conversation right up front, getting them excited, getting them engaged even before they have that first meeting. This can be a very powerful tool in that regard. Let's speed through the rest of this right here and get to the actual map itself though. Investments, let's say we got one thing on here. Kevin's got a 401k. We can simply call it Kevin's 401k. And it's worth about $200,000. Perfect. Sounds good. Click save right there. Click done. Insurance, I don't care if it's term or whole life or universal, some kind of hybrid, what the cash value is. All I care about here is, hey, where is it? How much is it? Tell me those 2 things. Maybe that's all the prospect knows. I have this policy over here at Principal. The benefit's $500,000. I know nothing else about it. Perfect. Get just that info on the map. That's a great starting point. We can always do a policy audit down the line later on. For now, though, we're off to a pretty good start here. They click continue and they're going to get more positive reinforcement. Hey, nice work, Kevin and Peggy. You're doing great so far. We are now 87% complete. We've only got 13% to go. At this point, they're probably going to finish, and I hope they do, because the next section here is the most important one of all. Another broad, open-ended question. What else is on your mind? Hey, Kevin, Peggy, when we get together for this first conversation, what are the absolutely vital topics you want to make sure I cover? Tell me what's important to you. I'll make sure we discuss that in this first meeting. Well, retirement planning is almost always going to be one, kind of a catch-all, but you never know the full situation with this prospect until you ask them a big, broad question like this. Maybe we find out now that, you know what, Kevin just moved his mother into assisted living. Now, he and his siblings are talking about getting together and how they're going to help pay for mom's care. All right, that is a heavy emotional topic. But you know what, Kevin? That is absolutely a topic you can bounce ideas off of me as a trusted and caring advisor. Tell me that's important to you. I'll make sure we discuss that in this first meeting. That is so much more important than talking about performance or how we are going to kill it in the market, because this prospect doesn't care how much I know until they know how much I care. That's why this section here is so vital. Tell me why we're getting together and what's important to you. Retirement security, caring for your mom. I'm going to put those two placeholders on the map as stencils. I'll make sure we discuss those topics much more in depth during this conversation. That is an important thing to focus on for this meeting. Now they're on the map as financial placeholders for discussion. We'll see what it looks like in just a bit here. Let's click continue one more time, and we'll see the last page they got to fill out is this free text field. Write me a whole diatribe, your thoughts on the economy or inflation, or just tell me the story of what's going on with mom. Or write nothing at all. Nope, I'm good. More often than not, get something like this. Hey, I'm looking to retire by the time I'm 67. Perfect. I had a little information to go on there. That's helpful. They now click all done, and look what happens. Me, the advisor, I just got an email. That email says, hey, John, Kevin and Peggy Cash are all done with discovery. Now, I, the advisor, will want to go in and check out what they've given me. And if they did a good job, like we know they just did, the next step is to reach out to them as soon as possible and set this appointment up. Why? Because this prospect is engaged right now. I am currently top of mind for them. I want to reach out now, strike while the iron is hot, and not let this great opportunity here grow cold. So that's my next step. Set the appointment. Meanwhile, Kevin and Peggy see this fun confetti page. They know they're all done. They can go off and enjoy the rest of their day. Their part of this is over for now. Now, we, the advisor, come back here to the office. We refresh our discovery dashboard, and look what happens. At the top of the page, we now have Kevin Cash right there. 100% complete. Couple options have now lit up for us. We can see over here, I can generate a one-page PDF report. Everything that prospect gave me right there on one page, great for compliance purposes. But the most important thing I did was I built this household out already. If I click go to household right here, and I click into their asset map visual right in the middle there, here we go. Kevin and Peggy, brand new prospects coming in. I have a nice looking first draft of their asset map all ready to go. So remember, at this point, I, the advisor, haven't lifted a finger yet. I have not done a thing here. This is entirely what Kevin and Peggy gave me through the discovery interview. It's a pretty good start, isn't it? I've got cash flows for income and rental over here, right, from the left and right. I've got insurance up top. I've got joint assets, real estate down below. And then there's Kevin's 401k right there in red. Look at these two grayed out tiles. Those are my stencils, placeholders for further conversation, because Kevin told me I want to talk about caring for my mom and retirement security. I, the advisor, now place both those topics on here as grayed out stencil tiles. So I make sure during this first meeting, I focus intently on each of those topics because it matters to my prospect. But looking broadly at this whole map here, it's a pretty good starting point, but I'm missing a lot of information. For example, I don't have any Social Security estimates on here. I don't have any insurance for poor Peggy. In fact, Peggy has no assets on her side either. That might not be the case. We might be missing more than a few things here. Totally fine, because this next step I'm going to do is the same. Whether I built this map out manually from scratch, synced in info from a third-party integration like Redtail or Riskalyze, or I have used a discovery interview to get a prospect up and running. The same thing is true. Take this foundation here and add on to it, right? Put that scaffolding up, assemble that visual agenda, and then fill in gaps I'm seeing on the map. To get to our stencils, I simply right-click to pull up the Actions menu, anywhere on the map. You can also go over here to the left side, with the actions right there. It's the exact same menu, whatever works best for you. From this Actions menu, I can actually create one-off boxes very quickly, very easily. Add more cash flows, assets, more members, a trust or a business, easy to do on the fly, even during a meeting. If a client says mid-meeting, hey, you're missing my bank CD, can you add that to the map right here? Sure. Add the asset, give it a name, give it a value. It's on the map in seconds. But with a brand new map like this, I'm going to start down here with my stencils. If I click on Apply Stencil right here, there are two sections. I've got my stencils that I built and customized myself, and I have the public library here at Asset Map. Now to start with, you'll have nothing in your stencils. That's totally fine. We're going to add to it right now. The Public Library tab, this drop-down box, has dozens of templates already built out here for you to use. And they start pretty broad. The Fact Finder stencil is going to be every topic under the sun thrown onto the map at once. It might be overkill in this situation. So I can scroll down and get a bit more specific here. So I have stencils here for Millennial, Gen X, and Boomer. Generational stencils. You tend to want to pick the stencil that most fits the demographic of the client or prospect you're working with right now. Now, Kevin and Peggy here are brand new prospects. I don't know much about them, but what do I know? They're both 50 years old. Therefore, I may want to use my Gen X stencil here. Why? Because it will have all sorts of topics that might apply to their demographic. So for example, Gen X clients might want to talk about long-term care for their parents. They might have old retirement accounts they want to look at rolling over. What about student loans? Some of them still have them, right? Let's use the stencil that most fits our demographic here, apply it to the map, and have those conversations. And I can get really granular as I go down this list here. We've got stencils for military retirees, educators, firefighters, philanthropists. If I know this client or prospect has philanthropic goals, I might use this stencil here because it will have topics like donor advised fund, pooled income fund, charitable trust, topics I might want to cover with that type of client. So pick the stencil that you want to use here and apply it to this map. And if you want to take any of these stencils here and put your own spin on them, that's what the plus sign over here is for. You can add a copy of any of these stencils into your personal library. Once you've done that, you can now go in and edit it. Change the title, rename some tiles, remove some tiles, add some tiles, make it your own custom stencil with your own language in there. I recommend most new users do just that. Get your own language in these placeholder boxes and guide those conversations. For the sake of today's training, I'm going to use the default Gen X stencil, keep it pretty broad, and then hone in during the conversation here. I'll apply it to the whole household, primary and spouse, and very quickly, in a matter of seconds, I've got a lot more conversation to have with this prospect. So this is pretty good, right? We have filled in a lot of the spaces here, but it might be overkill. There may be topics I know right away I can already remove. For example, on Kevin's side, I now have a job title stencil. Now that would be great if I knew nothing about his job. I could say, hey, Kevin, where do you work? How much do you make? Other details. Fill all that in right here. But I already know he works at Microsoft. He makes 200 grand a year. He told me that in discovery. So this job title stencil right here, it's superfluous. It's redundant. We don't need it. I can therefore click on this tile to open it up. In the pop-up box that appears on the bottom left, I have a trash can icon. Clicking on that and clicking yes will get rid of that one stencil tile off the map quickly and easily. It's gone. It was redundant. It was superfluous. We didn't need it. And now it's off the map. I can do that one by one, getting rid of tiles that don't apply. Or there's a much faster method. If there are multiple tiles on here, I want to get rid of at the same time. To do that, I'll head to the top right here. I have this small bubble up top. It's called my Search and Select tool. If I click on that small bubble in the top right, it expands this bar at the top. And now I can go through and click on several different tiles. What do I know for sure here doesn't apply? I know that Peggy is not currently working. I don't have to ask about her job title. If I click on the tile now, it is selected with a green check mark right there. I can do that for several other tiles. What else do I know for sure? Their school loans are paid off. They told me that already. Let's get each of those selected. House and mortgage right here in the middle. Here's the house. Here's the mortgage. Don't need a stencil here for house and mortgage. And business interest, business loan. Let's say I know for sure they don't own a business right now. I now have 7 tiles selected. I go back to the top here, click delete, and I'll get rid of all 7 of those tiles in one fell swoop. So that is a quick and easy way to update this stencil. Take off what you know for sure does not apply. Everything else, though, leave on here. If you don't know one way or another, let the client or the prospect be a part of that decision. Hey, do you have this? Is it valuable? If they say yes, cool. We're going to have a conversation, add details to it. If they say no, not a problem. I'll do what I just did and take it off the map. Either way, though, they're now involved in that decision, in that building process. Remember, this works best when it is used collaboratively, interactively. So Kevin and Peggy now, this map is in a pretty good place for our first meeting. So I'll set the appointment up either in person at my office or over a Zoom, doing a screen share like this. I'll pull this map up. And here's the language I'll use in this case. Hey, Kevin, Peggy, great to meet you both. Thanks for coming in. And thank you especially for filling out that discovery interview ahead of time. Using what you've given me, I took the liberty of creating this first draft of an asset map for your family. And I want to go over the items here that you said were important to you. Now that language is so key because right away you come across as a trusted and empathetic advisor. You are not someone trying to sell a product. You want to get to know them, build a map out, and then provide the best advice possible. For a brand new client relationship, this is a very strong footing to start on. Look at Peggy now. She's got some topics above her head for insurance and assets over here. Let's bring her into the conversation, make sure we're not missing anything on her end. To focus in on Peggy specifically, I'm going to use my marker tool. The shortcut key on your keyboard is Control M, M for marker. Or head to the top right here, click the marker icon, pick a color, and start drawing on the map with your mouse or your stylus very quickly and easily. This is a great way to focus the client in and say, hey, Peggy, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. We didn't get a whole lot of information on you from Discovery Tool there. Can I ask you a question here? Do you have a retirement plan, like a 401k or an IRA, any kind of like qualified retirement assets there? And she might say, you know what? I do. I have an IRA at Fidelity. It has $30,000 in it. I check it every single day when I wake up. Okay, cool. She told us what we want to know. Let's now turn our marker off. Control M is that shortcut. Open this tile up right here and enter in what she just told me. What's this called? We'll call it Peggy's IRA. It's at Fidelity and it has $30,000 in it. What else did she say? She checks it every single day when she wakes up. Oh, great. She's one of those clients. All right, make it as of date. Make it as of today's date. That way I know the IRA is worth $30,000. If that value was as of last quarterly statement or as of year end, I'd put that date in and then I would know it could be more, could be less, not sure, it's not current. But I now click update and that gray stencil tile now turns red. Red down here, meaning it's a qualified retirement asset, and now Peggy has 30 grand to her name. Cool. Her IRA is now on the map. We can move on to the next topic. Or we can dive deeper into that one. Open the IRA back up. I've got the 3 things I need: name, location, and value, but I can add more details if I'd like to. Notice though that whenever I open these tiles up, they expand right in the middle of the map right here, obscuring the rest of the visual. There is another way. If you want to have these tiles open up, but also keep the map in view, we want to use our sidebar feature for that. To get to the sidebar, head back to the map here, right click on the map or pull your actions bar up, and toward the bottom you see a section called Toggle Visibility. In this section, make sure the sidebar function is checked on. If it is, now on the bottom right here, I have this little caret. If I click it, a column on the right opens up. I go to the top here and choose the Members Financial section. Let me zoom one level out here so you can actually see the whole thing. Let me open up Peggy's IRA again. Look at that. It opens up on the side of the AssetMap platform. You can see the forest and the trees in the same view. So I've got the basics here: name, location, value. You have those 3 things. You can add any tile you want to the map. But if you want to get a bit more detailed, that's what this middle tab here is for. Click into where it says details and start asking some more questions. Hey, Peggy, Who is your beneficiary on that IRA? And she might say, oh, you know what? It's my husband, 100%. Great. We have now named Kevin as a primary Benny right there, 100%. When I update that tile over here on the left side, I have a whole beneficiary section where I can see in one place, if we lose Peggy tomorrow, where do the cash flows, the insurances, the assets, where does all this go to, right? Who are the beneficiaries here? Is anything unassigned? If so, let's have a conversation. I recommend putting good Benny info on all these sections where it applies because that Benny report, clients really like to see that part of the asset map. Contingent bennies, I can have the same way right there. What about annual contributions? Hey, Peggy, are you fully funding your IRA? And she says, yeah, I'm maxing it out every year. Okay, great. Well, she's 50 years old now. Let's have her fund that until she is age 67. So now in a retirement target map, I can show not just a 30 grand IRA growing at an assumed rate of return. I can also show that max contribution going in every year for the next 17 years, growing at the same rate of return. At a high level, what does that look like? Are we on track for retirement? Or are there steps we can take today to make us more successful? We'll talk about all that and more during Target Map training. So stay tuned for more there. We'll put a pin in that for now and come back to it. There are also some great optional fields down here for grantor custodian, account type, nickname, risk profile, and instrument choice. Feel free to leave all these blank or fill them all in. Totally up to you as the advisor, whatever helps you have a conversation with your clients. No more, no less. But the notes section up here, the third tab, is where I can add a whole lot more detail to this IRA. Now, stencils will occasionally come with these pre-built questions in here, which are really good jumping off points if you need them. For example, if this was a 401k, hey, does your employer match your contributions? How much risk you taking? Who are your beneficiaries? All great starter questions. You don't need them though. Feel free to take them out of here. And instead put in notes for today's meeting. Like today we discussed reallocating to an aggressive growth model. There we go. Nice, easy notes right there. I click update. Those notes are now tied to Peggy's IRA on the asset map. And I can keep going here. Sub-account info, stock holdings, performance info, Benny info, weird stories the account might have. Add whatever you want to these sections, as much or as little as you please. I have some advisors who like to put in homework for their clients. So in bold text, I'll put in, hey, Peggy, please get me a statement on this IRA. There we go. Nice, easy homework for her. I click update right there. Those notes are now tied to Peggy's IRA. If I go to my notes section on the left over here, open it up, you will now see Peggy's IRA right there, along with the notes we just added and every other note on the asset map, which right now is a bunch of stencil placeholders. But as I add more details in here, this section can be a very valuable part of the overall report. I can kind of have my cake and eat it too, because the visual of the asset map is going to be simple, clean, easy to follow. Meanwhile, I can have all the minutiae spelled out in detail in this section if I want to. Up to you as the advisor how you want to use the notes section, but it can be a very valuable thing to include in those comprehensive reports. Back on the asset map here now, though, you'll see that Peggy's IRA is on the map with a whole bunch of detail behind it. That is what I want for each of these tiles, to ask the question, do we have it? Is it valuable? If we do, we're going to add details to it. If we don't, we'll take it off the map. Or in the case of a Roth IRA here, maybe I don't take that one off the map, even if Peggy doesn't have one, because I can always talk down the road about a Roth conversion. That topic is right here waiting to be covered. So feel free to leave some stencils on here to be addressed later. Long-term care, maybe we don't address it in this meeting right now or the next one. Until we do, though, I leave those on there like a slow drip marketing campaign. Eventually, the client might say, okay, is long-term care important? Do we need that? Great. Now we have the conversation. And if you ask me where I made revenue in practice using AssetMap, it was oftentimes right here. I almost always recommend having an old employer tile on here on your stencils, even for existing clients. It doesn't hurt to ask. Hey, Peggy, do you have any old employer plans you know about? And you might say, you know what? I do. I just got a statement on an old 403B at the schools. I worked there for over 10 years. It has about $50,000 in it. Perfect. She told me everything I want to know. All right, turn the marker off. Control M is that shortcut. Open this tile up and enter in just what she told me. What is this called? It's an old 403B. It's at the schools. It's got $50,000 in it. And she said she notes as of last statement. So I'll go ahead and put in, and maybe June 30th was that one. Perfect. I've got the old plan of the schools, 50 grand in it. In location, I did not put Vanguard or Empower Financial or Transamerica. I don't need a custodian name. The word schools is fine. Whatever language in these sections helps you have a conversation, use it. There's no required formats here. But when I click update, what do I now know? There is 50 grand more on Peggy's side of the map that I didn't know about before. Now it's on here as a red tile. What does that mean? It means I, the advisor, have permission to bring this up in conversation. Hey, Peggy, that old plan of the schools, can I talk to you about that? Do you plan to go back and work for this employer again? Is there a reason the money's still here in the old plan? And she might say, you know what? No, I hated that job. I'm never going back there. I don't know why the money's still in the plan. I never got around to moving it. What do you recommend I do with this? And I say, you know what, Peggy? If it's all the same to you, if we're not going back to the schools to work again, I think we should take the old plan that doesn't really fit anymore, roll into your existing IRA. It'll give us a lot more flexibility in terms of how we allocate those investments there. And then when it comes to RMD later in life, I'll show you how that works too. How's that sound? She says, wow, sounds great. Let's do it. So what I just do, I just found a $50,000 rollover just because I had a stencil on the map and I asked a handful of questions. Now, how easy is that? It's like 2 phone calls, a couple signatures, a small mountain of Reg BI paperwork, and then we're all set to go, right? That alone might pay for AssetMap by itself right there. That is the real power of these stencils. Guide your clients and your prospects through the conversation, step by step, like a visual agenda. And when you find something like this, stop and ask some more intentional questions. Why is this here? Who does this serve? Do these clothes still fit? Ask those questions and you'll find very quickly that opportunities like this start jumping off the page at you. And then all you as the advisor to do is simply have a conversation, something you're likely already very good at doing. So that is the flow for this first meeting. I'm going to take that foundation, whether I built it myself, used an integration, or did discovery. I'm going to add to that foundation by using my stencils, clean them up a bit, and then put it in front of my client or prospect and start having a conversation, building the map collaboratively, interactively, having a nice back and forth. By the end of this meeting here, Kevin and Peggy are walking in my office, holding in their hands more or less a fully built out asset map. And of course, before this meeting is done, we're going to talk about caring for Kevin's mom and retirement security because he told me that's important to him. But check this out. Even if he didn't tell me in discovery that was an important thing he wants to discuss, I, as an advisor, am being proactive down here. Even if you haven't said anything, I'm going to ask if your parents have any long-term care plans. If the answer is, I don't know, that's a conversation worth having right now, not 10 years from now when it could be a significant cash outflow looming over our heads. So you as the advisor, use these stencils, build your own custom one, have your own language in here, and guide these conversations. I think you'll find it's a very valuable back and forth. But once the map is fully assembled, how do those conversations go? To do that, we're going to head now to a sample household. Up in the top left here, I have a search icon. If I click on it, start typing the word sample, and you'll find all these sample households appear. They are here in your account to play with. Feel free to dive in and play around with them. Great way to learn the system. I have one of these trainings on the bottom called my Flintstone sample that I built out. Let me open them up right now and go into their asset map. All right, here is Fred and Wilma Flintstone's asset map. To this point, right, they've been pretty good clients. We had a nice back and forth, a couple meetings between now and this next one we're having, and they're coming in today for their annual review. Well, before they come in, I, the advisor, pull this map up, and I want to make sure all of my info is up to date. So I'll simply go in and look what I manage. Wilma's Roth at Schwab. I open it up right here. I check in Schwab the current value, and it's up to 165. Right, change that value, change the date to today's date, and click update. That right there took me 3 seconds. Change the value, change the date, and you're good. It does not take more than 3-4 minutes tops in most cases to fully update your asset maps manually. I've done it many, many times. If you're using one of our integrations, it's even faster than that. You would simply right-click the map right here. At the bottom, you'd see a box for integrations, and you would sync all the info from Redtail, Schwab, Orion, wherever it may be, comes over in a few seconds. Either way, doesn't take long on your end to update the map, but you can't update everything. There will always be info you don't have, and that's okay because I want my prospect, my client here, involved in that conversation. When Fred and Wilma come in and sit down, I don't know what their current checking or savings balances are. I don't manage their bank account, their property value, their personal debt, any outside accounts. So the first thing always is going to be, Fred and Wilma sit down. I pull this map up and I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Flintstone, great to see you both. Thanks for coming in. I've made some updates to your map based on what I know about you, but I want to make sure all the info here is current. I have your house right here at Bedrock at 570. Is it still worth about that much? And they might say, no, John, we got it reappraised. It's up to 600,000 right now. Wow, congratulations, that's fantastic. Let me change that for you. Open this tile up, enter in right here, 600 grand, put in today's date, click update. Now that right there is client engagement. That's the first thing we do. We pull this map up and say, hey, what's changed? What's different? What's missing from here? And I want my client to find things. I want them to say, hey, my mortgage is lower than that. Hey, my house value is higher. Hey, you're missing this outside brokerage account we never told you about. All of that is good because that opens up our conversation so much more when my client is bought into the map process. Now, once they've done that, they look at this map now and say, yep, that's all current. That's us. Looks good. Perfect. I now have a snapshot in time of the Flintstone family. But what does it mean? Now that's where target maps come into play here. Once I have all this great data on here, what does it mean? Is my client here on track to meet their goals? What if we lose Fred prematurely? Is there enough insurance here that Wilma could sustain her quality of life? What about disability event or long-term care? What about education funding for their daughter? Or, of course, retirement funding. Are they going to outlive their money or can their money outlive them? I can use a target map to have those conversations quickly and where the client can actually comprehend in a matter of minutes. During target map training, we'll dive a whole lot deeper there. So put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. Couple other cool, very neat features we have here in the asset map. Up at the top here, I've got different members of the household. Wilma and Fred are currently selected. If I click on Wilma, I'll remove her from the view. If I click on her again, I'll bring her back in. And I have different members up here too, like Pebbles, their daughter. She's 3 years old. Pearl Slaghoople is Wilma Flintstone's mother's name. Google it. That's a real fact. That's a good one to keep in your back pocket for trivia night. That'll come in handy. But you know what? Pearl Slaghoople is a part of the map. They're taking care of her. Her name is also on here. And of course, the Bedrock Bakery, Wilma's business. If I click on the Bedrock Bakery name, I'm going to add that entity down to the view below. Now, this map is Fred, Wilma, and the bakery all on one page. That's pretty kind of hard to make sense of, kind of confusing on here. Let's clean it up just a bit. Let's take Wilma out of there and Fred out of there. And now I just have the bakery by itself on one page. Pretty simple view, but I can have it more complex. Incomes, expenses, debts, assets, insurances. I can have a whole robust map for the business or keep it more simple. And I want to keep the business here separate from the personal map. The way I do that is by pulling the business up just like this, and then right-click on the map, go into my layouts here, and saving whatever current configuration I have as a layout. I'll call this one Bedrock Bakery and click Create. I can do the same thing for businesses, trusts, beneficiaries, other third parties I want to include on here, have separate asset map layouts, and then swap between those layouts up here quickly and easily. The default is Fred and Wilma, primary and spouse side by side. But the business now also has its own layout as well, which I can report on separately in that comprehensive asset map report. Have page 1 be Fred and Wilma's map, right there. Turn the page, there's the business map and the trust map and the beneficiaries, etc. Layouts are able to separate out the asset maps, make them in a coherent format for the client. That's another cool feature there. Fred and Wilma, though, might look at this map today and want to say, hey, how would the map look different if this happened or that happened? That is our drafts feature. I can take this current map right here and show you a potential outcome if we did X or Y. Let's say, for example, what if Wilma predeceases Fred? What would the map look like in the event that occurred? If I right-click on the map again, we have our drafts feature at the bottom here. I'll open this up, and I have one I made already called Estate Plan Wilma Predeceases Fred. I apply this to the map right here, and you'll see we go into watermark mode. Now, in the notes at the bottom here, you can see what's happening. This is a total sandbox. Whatever changes I make to the map right now are not permanent changes. They don't affect the real-time map at all. But here I'm saying, hey, if Wilma goes away, what happens? Fred takes over all her qualified accounts. He takes over the income from the bakery. He's also got this term policy on Wilma that pays out. What happens to it? It becomes a pile of money down here. I don't know what we're doing with it, but it's on the map there. So I can see at a high level all the different changes that are being done here. My notes section spells it out. I can hide the changes. Here at the map before, I can show the changes. Here's the map after. So I can have this be a complex situation or more simplified. Hey, here are all your qualified accounts. What if I put them in one IRA, before and after? So use drafts to show those potential outcomes before they become a real thing. When I click the X button over here, we're back on the map as it is today. No changes have yet been committed to the map. So drafts is a good before and after picture for those types of situations. Let's talk about one more cool thing here, and that's our beneficiary section. Over here in the Benny section, if I click into it, you'll see the entire Benny report. For Fred Flintstone, if we lose him, I don't know what happens. Where does the income go, the assets, the insurances? I can view them like this in a list format, or we have a new visualization tool for Benny information. Up in the top right here, click those little boxes, and you'll see the same beneficiary layout in visual form. If Fred is gone, what is unassigned? The Social Security. No one gets it. Wilma makes more than him. Cool, we know about that. The assets, what's unassigned? Well, I don't know who gets the business, etc. Wilma is taking over, for example, the rental income. I've got all that laid out in visual format, very neat and clean. And I can include this in my comprehensive report as well, all the Benny information. So on the reports page now, we can put together a nice, clean, comprehensive packet for Fred and Wilma. Cover page, your logo, nice and big at the top. The asset maps, we have a default one. Fred and Wilma side by side right here, the primary and spouse map. I also have the bakery right here. We made that separate layout. Let's include that separate map as well. Target maps, I've got a bunch of good ones here. We'll talk about those more during target map training, so we'll put a pin in that for now and turn those off. Notes section, I have a bunch of good notes in here. Definitely want to include those. The balance sheet, maybe, maybe not. Policy summary, all the insurance details, cash value, length of term, premiums, all that good stuff. And of course, the Benny report. Who gets what if someone passes away? Show me for Fred and Wilma on 1 or 2 pages exactly who's getting what. Down toward the bottom, I've got, of course, my disclosure language. I go to the top here, and this is going to be an 8-page report. Now, that is great. That's a whole lot less than 80 pages. 8 pages, frankly, my client can comprehend and understand. I can generate this PDF now and either print it out, 4 pages front and back, put it in an envelope, put a note from the advisor in there, put a stamp on it, mail it to them. In a couple of days, they're holding a physical asset map packet in their hand. Or I could send an email out. In that email, I have my next step bullet points. What are we doing next? Give me updates on the Social Security information, give me a statement on this, this, and this, and then I say, and I've attached a comprehensive asset map report. Please reach out with changes or updates. I attach the 8-page PDF of the email. I send it off to them. That client now knows exactly where they're at today, what I recommend we do moving forward, and how every time we get together, we're going to update, review, and refresh our strategy. Now, that is the entire asset map process from A to Z. And I realize it's a lot of information, like drinking through a fire hose. So if there are any big questions right now, the Zoom chat is open. Please chat them in. I'm happy to give you some answers here. Let's talk about next steps. The obvious next step here is target map training. I mentioned it several times. We have those twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. There's a link in the Zoom chat right now to register for one of those sessions. We'll see you there and dive a lot deeper into the planning features available within Asset Map. Your homework from here is to build your first asset map out. Put yourself through discovery. Put a family or friend through it. Pick out your favorite client and build them out manually. Reach out if you need help along the way. That's what we're here for. And then later on, the third onboarding call is going to be a complete the picture session. One-on-one with myself or one of my colleagues. Let's get together and show me a map you've built. Let me give you language and feedback. My goal as an onboarding advisor here is to really build your confidence up. So you're going to these meetings and having great conversations with your clients. Anything at all I can do to help you get there, please reach out. I'm more than happy to assist. Otherwise, I'll be here for a few minutes. If there are any questions coming in, happy to answer them. I hope you all enjoyed the training, got a lot of value out of it, and I look forward to hearing all of your great success stories using AskMap. Until we talk soon, be good at it, take care, have a great week, and enjoy, everyone. Talk to you soon.